Living Laboratory. The grant is the Smart City Mobility Living Laboratory, where we're the recipient because we're the governmental entity, but it really flows through Distillery Labs. We've been part of that grant agreement was to set up in a virtual sense, the Living Laboratory. Its purpose is to provide just exactly that, a real-world laboratory where startup companies and entrepreneurs can come and test various technologies. Most all of those are in the public rights-of-way. The City Council has granted authority to Distillery Labs for several companies, one of which is from Grand Rapids, Michigan, one is from the U of I, and one is from Carnegie Mellon University, which is in Pittsburgh, to bring their technology to Peoria and then actually test it. Some of it is looking at sidewalks, some of it is looking at traffic circulation and whatnot. And then there is a local company that is going to be where we will purchase and then use data collection to look at the how effective the city's green infrastructure strategy that they were able to negotiate with the U.S. EPA as it relates to their federal consent decree on the combined sewer overflow. These projects that are coming forward now are exactly what the grant originally intended to do, but this concept was new to IDOT. They didn't exactly know how to write that up, so we've had to, one, amend the scope of work for the agreement with IDOT, and that actually will be coming next month. And second, amend our agreement with Hanson in terms of how the grant dollars are being allocated. So what's before you today is the agreement with Hanson. This agreement, if approved, will allow Hanson to then turn around and pay some of those vendors as the grant intended to, with the grant dollars that they'll bill us for. So Hanson now is acting as kind of a subrecipient for those out-of-town vendors to then come and test their technology here. And then, like I said, it was the term was extended and the scope of work was amended to be able to do that. And then, as I said, next month the actual agreement with IDOT will be brought forward as well. We're just waiting on IDOT. They've given verbal approval to what we're talking about and what you're voting on today, but we're waiting on the paperwork from IDOT.
Any comments, questions from Mr. Sorrell? Okay, seeing none, please vote. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion of the December organization meeting and county board meeting dates and standing agendas.
So, Mr. Chairman, the county board has their reorganization meeting and the election of chairman and vice chairman this coming Monday, December 5th at 6 p.m. The regular business meeting of the regular business meeting in the month of December for the county board, second Thursday, which is Thursday, December 8th. A number of county board members have reached out and said, is there an opportunity or a possibility to cancel December 8th and move those agenda items, all that we've seen yesterday and today, to the agenda on December 5th. The answer to that is it's possible. You've actually done it frequently. In fact, 2 years ago, we did those two things plus budget. But we need some direction from this committee so that we can formally cancel that published and noticed regular county board meeting, and then make sure that the agenda for the December 5th meeting is properly noticed and includes all the appropriate agenda items. So just looking for some direction from this committee on how you want to do it. Do you want to have 2 meetings next week or 1?
Okay, those people are still going to be here. Sharon, you want to make a motion? 1 meeting. Everybody is going to be here. Everybody wants 1 meeting. I see a consensus of 1 meeting. That's your direction.
That's all I needed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Miscellaneous announcements. Standing committee, yeah, okay, that's not part of it? No.
Nope, that's just what you do every month, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Oh, okay. That's what we have. You read off, excuse me. Yes, go ahead. The standing committee, can we have a motion? Oh, gosh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, God, holy cow, wow, man.
Mr. Chairman,
I was thinking about,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'm sure after looking at the agenda that I'm going to have to speak to in regards to infrastructure. If you took a vote, most of the people in here would probably say, let's pass by the report of the committees and so forth.
Yeah, I saw you, I sat through yours yesterday, Phil, so but we're gonna let you go ahead anyway, and county ops first, though, on the agenda.
Thank you. We had 3 resolutions. The first was the joint resolution with the Finance Committee, and I think everybody was here for that. That was to transfer the bequest to the Humane Society from the Becker family. The 2 resolutions that we had solely for operations, one was the excess health insurance coverage, and the second is the risk management excess insurance. Something to note from that one, I guess it's a sad testament to our times, but it was recommended that we add active shooter insurance to our policy. So that would cover $1 million coverage for, initially it was going to be $18,000. It's now moved to about $24,000, but that will cover any active shooters that would happen on our property. The extra $8,000 covers our deputies who have been outsourced or have contracts with schools, so it also covers the schools if something should happen. So that's liability coverage for our organization in the event of an active shooter.
So it's 20,000 annually,
24,000
annually.
for $1 million coverage.
Okay.
And this was all brought, it was brought to us because of some of the things that are happening with Parkland.
Mhm.
Some of the liability suits that they're seeing from the incident that happened last year up there.
Okay, that's it? All right. And the second one, we have infrastructure, Phil. You can give us our cliff notes on that one then.
Well, as you look there, we've only got 8 resolutions, and that's because our committee really works hard. And the first 3 have to do with speed limit, and because Rachel never was on our committee, and I want her to be sure to understand when people start talking about speed limits and so forth, that she can answer to these people of how to go about getting the speed limit, of course, reduced. And if they got a road commissioner, you go to that road commissioner as a private citizen and you say, hey, we got a problem with safety in our area because the speed limit needs to be reduced. And so he then contacts our highway department, and our highway department takes it over, and they actually go out and look at the road that is being asked to have their speed reduced. Now, they don't just look at it, they drive it. And they look at certain things. How many entrances there are on this particular piece of highway or road. And they also, of course, look, is it curvy? The geometry of it is what they say. Is it hilly? Is it rolly? They look at all different aspects, and they count the driveways in a subdivision, for instance. And 2 of these, of course, are right. 2 of these groups are from in subways subdivisions, pardon me, I said subways, subdivisions, and they are Cobblestone and Wheatfield. And I'm kind of, combining all three of these for you. But anyway, the Ivy Lake road is about a 2-mile stretch up there in the area between East Cedar Hills and Rome. And they, of course, had this in an unposted rural area. And so because it's in an unposted rural township, then the state says the speed limit is 55. And they went out and conducted their study, the highway department did, and they found out actually the average speed was 31 in the area. And so they went to the people and they said, we're going to set this at 35. And they said the people all agreed that this was a reasonable speed limit to set for that Ivy Lake road. The other two were both unposted 30-mile-an-hour subdivision. One of the subdivisions is the Wheatfield subdivision, and that's just west of Limestone High School. And it's in right off of Pfeiffer Road. And so they, did their study and so forth, and they agreed to have a posted area of 25 for that subdivision. And they also did the same thing in the other area, which is the Cobblestone area. And that Cobblestone area, it is off of Dubit Road out there, and they said yes, the people were correct that the speed limit at 30 was too high, and so they put that as a posted 25 miles an hour. So those are 3 of our 8 resolutions. Next resolution, as you read there, it says the agreement that we wanted to have a resolution with the state to get money from the federal government in regards to Pulsifer Road Bridge. That is an area out between Elmwood and Brimfield, and we've already done some work on that region out there. But this is a 80-20 agreement with the federal government. IDOT, of course, will be in charge of opening the bids and so forth, and we will end up paying $150,000, and the federal government will be paying $600,000. So we felt that we wanted to make this agreement. The bids will be opened in January. Work will probably start as soon as they get good weather, most likely in March. So they are going to redo this bridge. They will not completely build a new bridge, but they're going to rehab much of that Pulsifer Bridge. The next resolution, as we have here, is the engineering fee that we owe to Union Pacific. It's a railroad, and they don't even have any tracks anymore. But I'd say it's probably a little over a month ago that the state, as well as our highway department, conducted an open house because that whole Maxwell area road, we're going to have a lot of work done on that. So anytime the railroad is involved and any engineering is done, then we have to pay for that right there by that bridge. It's around the operating engineers to about that motorcycle, what's the name of that? Walter's motorcycle shop. So we had to pay because we a lot of people wanted us just to take that bridge out. But because the railroad still owns that property, we have to recognize that fact. And so we just can't, pave over those former railroad tracks because there's no railroad tracks there. And that cost us $25,000. The next resolution the Dickinson Lane Bridge, which is up in the Chillicothe area, and it's in that area around the school, Mossville Road, and the school, and we are hiring an engineering firm called Millennium Professional Services, and we want to note the fact that they are a minority-owned business. Well, they are going to handle the supervision of this construction in this area. It's a one-lane bridge, and it will be done. I think it was for $100,000. I should have written that down. $100,000, but the cost is going to be shared by the Medina Road District. Now, the Medina Road District, they won't pay anything until the project's done. So we've got to upfront this entire project, and actually, if it's less than $100,000, then whatever it amounts to, if it's, we'll say $70,000, then it's only going to cost us $35,000. In other words, it's a 50-50 proposition after the project is over. The next one is also much in that same area. It's the old Galena Road, and we know that we're going to use the motor fuel tax on this, and this again is going to be an engineering firm, and the reason we're hiring these engineering firms is that we're short of help, and that was emphasized to us in our committee meeting. The project is going to be by the same law firm. The Millennium is already there, so we said we would go ahead and hire them. That particular project is going to be bid, and that bid will be in January of 23. The area will, of course, complete the construction of Old Galena Road, which would be Cedar Hills to Route 29. And the last one is a purchase of a piece of property on Brandywine Drive that all of you are familiar with, and that is, of course, the purchase of the Election Commission. And we have made a proposal that the cost would be $555,000. It's about about a 1.44 area of land and building. It'll be paid by the Biden money, or what we call the American Rescue Plan. Do we have any questions?
Very good. I think it's very complete. And there is one? Oh, Linda, excuse me.
Yes. I'm not on the infrastructure committee, but as I read over the resolution, I really don't understand why we would want to purchase this building for the election commission. I mean, there's a zillion commercial properties that are empty. This is a 50-year-old building. It was full of mold when the county took it over in 2016. Couldn't even use it for 22 months. I mean, I just, do we have comparisons with other commercial properties that are available, and have we evaluated exactly what is available in terms of square foot price per square foot?
Didn't we rehab it to the tune of about $700,000, Scott?
That's correct, Mr. Salzer. There's between $700,000 and $750,000 of leasehold improvements that the county board awarded contracts to, just to make the space usable by the commission.
Well, I just have a lot of concerns in terms of what may need to be done there and why we haven't looked at other properties that might be more suitable.
Of course, it's going to be used more than just for the election commission. And one of the things that we were planning to do, of course, as we are building the health department, or the Health and Human Services campus there, we were going to use it pretty much as a storage area for much of these people.
Yes.
I
Mr.
know I had
Dillon?
mentioned the administration earlier today, but I think it would be important for the collective group to get some of the data that went into the site selection of why they even chose this location through the election commission originally, because they did move from downtown to the more central location, so that we know through the research of why areas were chosen. Member No brought up some good points the other day, wanting to know of conditions of the building, what outlook of future
Maintenance?
work is needed to be done. I think there's some valid questions and concerns and answers. I don't think anybody's saying they're outright against it, but that there just needs to be some questions answered before making a large purchase. But I remember we did have data, because they are a separate entity, of why we chose that area with bus routes and central locations and other facilities. Like,
Correct. We can, we'll certainly dig up the agenda briefing that was tied back to the lease agreement from 2016, and we can add that to the packet. Where we can between now and Monday, we'll collect some of that additional data that may not be in that original agenda briefing from 2016 that we'll try and supplement, so that we'll try and answer as many questions that were raised yesterday in Infrastructure Committee and here today as possible
And
between now and Monday.
might be important to contact Ms. Gannon or Chairman Manning also, for that there's a representative from the Election Commission to discuss that this is, to my belief, something that they want to have.
Sure, we'll contact them and ask them to at least try and be present for the board meeting on Monday, so that they can speak their position if they're recognized by a board member.
And then another question that was brought up by Mr. No that might be curious for everybody yesterday. I believe you said the lease agreement, there's about 9 years left on it, but we pay about $51,000 a year in the lease. And we basically have about, was it 9 or 10 years left, Scott?
Roughly that. I haven't had a chance to pull the lease yet today, so it's 2016, and it was between 10 and 15 years when we did it. So I think it was actually a 10-year lease with a 5-year renewal. So we're already 6 years into that time frame. And it's got a small percentage escalator every year, so we didn't start paying $51,000 a year in year one. That's what we're paying this year. We'll pay 2 or 3% more than that next year, and then there's that small escalator each year.
And then that would be a future question for the board also of, in theory, if you were paying $50,000 in rent, that would bring their budget down by $50,000 unless you would leave some money in there for site improvements or landscaping improvements or something else.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, Rob first, then Linda.
I guess since we brought it up, and if you're going to collect information for next week, was there an assessment done on it? Like, the only thing I have to reference, because I don't do any commercial real estate, so the only thing I have to reference to is when I buy a home, I make sure that that it assesses for the correct value and that somebody has inspected it, so I know what condition the roof is in. I know you said it has a new HVAC.
Right.
So
we did that due diligence when we entered into the lease in 2016. The the price per square foot in the first couple years of the lease were significantly below market. So we actually did get a very good deal. Where the current, $51,000 annually compares with current market conditions, we haven't done that analysis since yesterday afternoon, but we can certainly try and look at that. The purchase price is just a little bit more than the owner's outstanding mortgage. And we know based on what he paid for it, what he had listed at earlier this year, that this is at a significant discount to what he thinks the value is from a purchase price. And obviously, he's going to lose a significant amount of money from what he purchased it for, but he will be able to pay off his mortgage with the sale proceeds. And he would not entertain. We actually started with a number that was less than what he owed, and that was part of the negotiation. And he was obviously not interested in any way, shape, or form a dollar value that was less than what he owes.
And I try to look at this individually, but it's our last real estate transaction that we had was significantly in the opposite favor, where we're continuing to pay on something that we no longer own. So I just want to make sure that it's a smart decision because of what's happened in the past with real estate.
Linda?
Who represents the county in this negotiation?
That would be me. And then I worked with a member of the election commission who has a relationship with the owner, and we did employ at a value that's within my spending authority a commercial real estate agent when he did have it listed for sale by a different firm.
Well, because I read that it was on the market for 200 days and it wasn't sold, and the price was reduced roughly $150,000.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Steve. Mr. Ricker.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware of this transaction coming up, so I'm a little bit unprepared to speak to it, but at this point, until I can spend more time understanding it, I'm going to be challenged to support it, just to make sure we understand all the questions that have been asked. But to me, it's a little surprise that this is coming up. I guess my first awareness of the actual decision to buy it. We've talked about it before, but to my knowledge, there was no discussion to do this. So for me, I'm going to have to get a lot more information to be comfortable next Monday.
I will say it's in the budget. There is a $700,000 in the budget for that purchase with the ARPA funds.
Yeah, but we hadn't. It was. Yeah, I don't want to go back too deep in the ARPA funds because we haven't spent our ARPA funds, and I'm not sure this is where I want to spend my ARPA funds at the moment. But regardless, just want to make sure we're doing the right decision.
You done?
You pointed out that it was budgeted, clearly lined item in the budget, and I believe it was in the budget also last year, but we never worked out an agreement with them, correct, Mr. Sorrell?
That's correct. To the best of my knowledge, he did not actively market it in calendar year 21. I may be wrong there, but to the best of my knowledge, he didn't.
Okay. Moving along to Ways and Means.
So Ways and Means, we had the normal resolution of the monthly delinquent taxes that passed unanimously, and then we had one tax sale certificate. There was a separate committee action item that did pass unanimously. That was all. Thank you.
Mr. Dillon, land use.
So we had two. The first was petition of Peoria County. So we amended some things, both good things. We've had some inquiries about event centers, and it was never clearly defined in our ordinances. So we are actually putting that as wording in there. So because currently as it was standing, it was not legal in Peoria County, and we're seeing people that have called about wanting to have barn venues or rural venues. So we thought this was a good opportunity to clean up that language, and also while we were doing that, we cleaned up the language of recreational, where we clearly defined an indoor gun range and its zoning so that it's not as vague as it was in the past. So both staff researched this from multiple cities and counties from across the area that are reasonable same size to us, and has a pretty good solution is what they came up with. And then the last is the petition of Michael Cochran. It is for a trust, and it is out on Evans Mill Road and Legion Hall. So it is taking this property and splitting it into 6 5-acre buildable lots. Mike Cochran is a principal for Austin Engineering that was hired on behalf of the owners. It came with a staff recommendation of approval, and it passed through the ZBA of a 7-0 vote. In committee, it was a 4-2 vote. The 2 votes were concerned over some water table issues that were presented by one of the objectors. There was 5 objectors to it, 0 supporters. 5 objectors, 2 were the same person. 1 is an individual and 1 is a company that he represents. So that was the main discussion, but that was approved by committee 4-2 and the ZBA 7-0. That will go on to us. Happy to answer any questions about those properties or the rule changes if needed. Ms. Daly?
Belinda?
Can you just explain the water part of that, please? The concerns about, I mean, is it wastewater? Is it?
So there was a concern from the neighbor. Now, I think this is fine without Kathy or Jenny. Correct me if I'm wrong. So remind you, this is a zoning case. So anything that we can take, it has to be given as evidence during the ZBA case. One of the residents that lives on the corner there that has some acreage, there's a farm field next to him, and he says that there's a creek that runs through by the owner's road and through some woods, that farm field floods, and that there's some drainage issues there. And then on the property below him, that there is some low-level water. It's in the Princeville area where there's some water tables are different, like one neighbor had mentioned. He has a well that is very deep and it runs dry, but across the street there's a shallow well and it never runs dry. I don't know if any of this was, but Austin Engineering did come through, went through, surveyed, I believe took soil samples. There might be a spot or two that a traditional septic system wouldn't work in due to water, but there's, as they said, there's other septic systems like aerators and other stuff that would be suitable for these building sites. So they did lay out in the sites where the septic fields would go, and they did all the well testing for these sites. So they are being divided. There's a current residence that's basically in the middle of these sites, and then the other, the way they've proportioned them, go around that center home.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I
Mis-
make one
yes.
clarification?
Mhm.
Just one clarification, because not everyone has been to a ZBA hearing, and like Mr. Dillon said, the ZBA is the fact-finding body, so then they present their findings of fact, and then the committee and the board, they can still approve or deny, but the facts don't change. It's just whether or not you think that the facts support the ultimate decision, meet all the prongs, and whatnot. So, but one point on the water and the septic and the soil, that would all go, that wouldn't be part of the ZBA and the land use and the board's decision making. That would be part of, if anyone ever did purchase and build on it, they'd have to get those approvals. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenbaum, Public Safety and Justice Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On information, the sheriff came and told us about the DCOs. They're going to be getting money for body cameras and car cameras, working with the city of Peoria on getting that. So they'll be updating them, and it'll be right now the cameras they have, they don't have the support from the manufacturer. They're outdated and so forth. So that was a good news. Instead of them having to buy them, purchase 100%, it's going to do about that'll take care of about 45% of the purchase price. And then we had 4 resolutions. They were all agreements with villages and cities. It's with Glassford, West Peoria, Hannah City, and Dunlap. The police service agreements, and most of them had a increase from what it was before, and most of them, or quite a few of them, are pretty close to what the cost is, like up to 90%. So he was real pleased with that.
Thank you. I guess the last one would be the Finance Committee, which you were all at, and we, as you know, we had 3 items. We had the joint resolution with Rob's on the PCAPs and the money going to the Humane Society. We also had a contract extension with Anderson Consulting for state legislative services. And then we had the write-offs for Headington Oaks. So that brings us around to where I was trying to get to before. Miscellaneous now for everyone. Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Fennell, I just wanted to say it's a pleasure been serving with you, and that you've done a fantastic job at the county. I know we said a lot of that. And then congrats to Miss Daly for being a Peoria Magazine Woman of Influence.
Hey.
Well deserved there also.
Anyone else? Rachel, your last night? Any comments? Come on, give us a little.
I know I wasn't able to be at the last board meeting, but it's been an honor and a pleasure serving. And, it's bittersweet. So many changes and seasons of life, but it's been truly a pleasure, and getting to know a lot of the members on this board personally and professionally. And then also being able to serve the community. I was talking to somebody the other day, literally the district I grew up in. So just been a pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity, the constituents that supported me, and also to the members around this board for the friendships that were formed. Thanks.
Yeah, and I would just like to leave the same sentiments. Everyone that I look around here, I value your friendship. I think we've worked a lot of different things together. But we've got to find out some personal things about one another, and that's important to me. So I'm going to go try to spoil my grandchildren some more, try to work on my wife's honey-do list, and a few things at the church that I've been wanting to get more involved in. So, but I'll still be reading the newspapers and trying to see if you get these cases closed. So anyway, but again, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate all your input. Okay.
Just for anyone that's interested, there is a breakfast to celebrate Ms. Daly's award. If you're interested in attending that, talk to Nancy or Shauna. We've got a couple of seats still available.